Week one of the NFL is over, and that means we have some big overreactions for you. We're going to talk about who's going to the Super Bowl just off of week one performances, and we're going to talk about who's going to be picking first overall, of course, as well.
Yep.
So I don't know who you've got written down. I've got some gimmies, some things that we already knew going into the season, but that were confirmed, and then I've got some deeper cuts that are like true overreactions to week one.
Yeah, no,
And
I
the
think
f-
I think we start on the high end. We start with that like the out of your mind, who's doing it, who's gonna make it all the way, who's hosting the Lombardi at the end of the year here. Because real the brewing of this segment was, and hey, if you're watching the plain video that comes out, this is actually a segment of our larger podcast, which will drop tomorrow if you're watching day of release. If not, go ahead, click on the channel, and it's probably already up there. But getting back into it, this kind of started brewing as I'm looking at all of these teams and how they played week one. Who do I think has the least question marks? Because the person with the least question marks that I know the most about, who's going to be good, you can obviously project them to go to the Super Bowl. And so I want to hear your thoughts first on who's those Super Bowl teams. What's that Super Bowl matchup going to be?
it's Bills Ravens are the two contenders for me. They can't play in the Super
No.
Bowl, unfortunately, as much as I would absolutely love for them to. That would be such an electric Super Bowl. But I truly believe they are the two best teams in football right now. I think going into the season, I would have probably had that opinion with the Eagles as like a close third, swap them into like those top three, swap them any way you want. And those are the top three teams in football. And I think going into week two, it's the Eagles and the or it's the Bills and the Ravens, and then it's everybody else beneath them. I think they are a big step ahead of everybody, and that's my kind of non overreaction is just a confirmation of what we already thought going into the year.
Yeah. I mean, with that, on the flip side, of course, the initial thought is like the Eagles. Now, did the Eagles look their usual self versus that Cowboys team? No, but across the NFC, you're looking at these teams and you're thinking, that was a pretty close matchup. Oh, that was a pretty close matchup. Oh wow, that one was also decided by one score. Hmm. It's almost like there's the one top dog, and even the top dog is going to be a tight game. I'm going to have to, of course, lean in favor of the preconceived top dog, the Super Bowl winners, um, with that NFC nod for that Super Bowl chip. But you know, with the Bills and the Ravens, with that matchup, I stated earlier on, the Bills are the ones that kept them alive. They kept themselves in the game, and they managed to make that huge push in the late game to overcome that 15-point deficit that they were at. But the Ravens almost had bad luck that gave that away to them. So I'm almost favoring the Ravens because they were the ones that were able to create that lead, and they just had those unfortunate circumstances that are rare for this team that propped up and really got in their face. So I'm going to be picking the Ravens over the Bills despite the fact that they just lost because it's felt so fluky of a loss as opposed to what you would normally see out of the Ravens, where they get a big lead and then they keep that big lead because they are just going to run the ball at you and you can't really stop them. And so,
Yeah.
with that Super Bowl matchup, I would have Ravens and the Eagles right now.
Yeah, I do agree. I think the Ravens were the better team, and I didn't write it down in my notes or anything, but that was my thought when I said Bills and Ravens are the best two teams in football. I was like, one team won, the other team is better.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how that happened, but it did. And then I do want to get into some deep cuts. I don't know if you have anybody that's like just a wild outside shot or shout out that's like this team is one of the better ones in the league. Um, I have actually the opposite. I'm going to go on a limb and say that there is a very non-zero chance that the Dolphins end up with the first overall pick this year.
Yeah.
I genuinely believe that.
That was a rough look. It's
Truly.
when team that we put in the currently tanking tier of our tier list that we put out last week goes ahead and drops 33 on your head. It is a difficult thing to stomach, and it's difficult to then imagine that things aren't about to fall apart for you as a team.
Yeah.
It's just gonna be rough. As I went through this last season, right? I was like, no, I'm gonna believe in Tua until he gives me a reason not to, and then he gave me so many reasons not to. So I'm not going to get burned again. I came into this season, I'm expecting nothing out of Tua. And oh hey, that's what he gave us. Nice.
Yeah,
Um
nothing. Um, the other thing I wanted to bring up is somebody that I've talked about earlier in the podcast episode. So again, if you're here just for this segment video, go check out the full podcast. Hear me talk
Please.
about the Jets, please. But the Jets, they truly looked amazing. I think Brees Hall had a return to form. You know, him with Engstrand, who worked so well with Gibbs, and with the Lions offense was the understudy to Ben Johnson, part of the success there. It really showed. And then obviously Justin Fields, who we have gushed about since before the Bears drafted Caleb Williams. We were talking about how Justin Fields has a shot, and seeing him finally get that shot and it not be on an incentive laden contract that, you know, would make us think that he could get benched for seemingly no reason other than, they don't want to pay a pick or a contract. I think the Jets are set up so well, and Fields is still young, and he looks so good in Week 1, and his chemistry with Garrett Wilson, and the strength of the running game with Brees Hall, and the change of pace with Braylon Allen. It's just that offense is so much better than I thought it could be, and then the defense, not a great showing against the Steelers, but I saw Sauce Gardner actually making plays, which I didn't know he was still capable of.
He's back
I
to
had
it.
completely written him off as, he was great his rookie season and then has just started getting away with pass interference, and that's why he's still good. But he was actually making plays. He was not getting there early. He was breaking up passes. He was hitting the receivers. He was doing so well. And it's just revitalized this hope that I'm sure Jets fans everywhere have to see their team drop 30 points. Like that hasn't happened recently. And to see that happen after losing Aaron Rodgers, who is supposed to be the savior of New York, and Devontae Adams, who is supposed to be his sidekick, and they were supposed to bring you to the promised land and get you to the playoffs at the very least, just for them to fall flat on their face.
Yeah.
To see this strength of this team just show out so much in Week 1, I would go so far as to say the Jets might be second place in the AFC East. They might get a playoff berth.
Yeah. No, my overreaction on the Jets half would be this is a playoff team. They just need to win enough games to show that. There's a lot of teams throughout the years that you'll see, notably like 3 years ago, Lions, when they went on a heater after starting 1-6, and that was a playoff team that didn't squeak in. But there's a lot of playoff teams that you see, like last year's Bengals with MVP Burrow, where they're just one game away from a different opponent losing, and they're in the playoffs, and they're the playoff team. I think the Jets are that playoff team. We just have to see them get there. We have to see them not have these obstacles come up of like, oh, this other, this opponent in your conference went ahead and got a win, so now you're out of it.
Yeah.
Now to deviate from just having the same things to say about the same teams that you are, I'll go ahead and I'll throw in, what I think is a fairly, I don't know. I feel like I don't see a lot of media, so I'm not exactly regurgitating what I've seen a whole lot. But, I'll get into a team that I don't think I don't want to just keep piggybacking opinions off of the ones you're saying. So I'll go ahead and get out there. With the Bengals, we have them as that playoff hopeful in our tier list that we did last week. Again, check out that video if you want to see where we had teams from our preseason point of view. And certainly things have changed already, but again, overreactions. So we can't really just immediately jump ship with that. But with the Bengals, I mean, it's not that the Browns are good. It surely can't be that the Browns are good, that the Bengals only won by a point. But boy, oh boy, does it kind of seem like the Bengals aren't going to be as good as expected. They usually win these matchups against the downtrodden Browns as of late. And yet here we have very mild performance from, very common pick of one overall of fantasy football across many, many leagues, Jamar Chase. And Joe Burrow also just not really having a great showing. And, they didn't do a whole lot. And they certainly let way too many points be put up by the Browns, who or rather, not even too many points. Just like why wasn't there any separation? Why did Joe Burrow not put the ball in the air successfully, really at all? It's Joe
You want to know why?
Flacco
You want
balls
to know why
out.
it is? You want to know why it is, Elijah? It's because it's week one. It's week one and it's the Bengals. They never perform in week one. They never do. Ever.
and
Ever, ever,
and
ever,
I'm
ever,
gonna
ever.
overreact, and I'm gonna say, damn it, they're missing the playoffs. We had them in that
We could do
playoff
this every
hopeful,
year.
and they're not doing it.
Next year after the Bengals win the Super Bowl, you know what our week one overreaction is going to be? Super Bowl slump. The Bengals are not going to be good this year because they only put up 17 points in a 4-point loss to the Bears, whoever they play in week
Yeah,
one next year.
the
It's an every
Titans.
year kind of thing. It's an every year kind of thing where the Bengals just cannot do anything in week one. They look a little better in week two. By week five, we're calling them Super Bowl favorites, and then their defense shits its pants and is, dragging their ass on the floor trying to clean it the rest of the year.
I mean,
So we
like,
can we can have these overreactions all we want. I'm super happy to do it, but I'm just letting you know.
yeah,
Incorrect.
yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Like, the offense is that poor, and Chase Brown. We'll see if that gets better. It's a rush game. It's a rushing group that I felt at least that we're not going to be able to see them reliably, lean on. It's going to be a team that has to put the ball in the air, but it does certainly leaves a sour taste in your mouth when we saw the year that Joe Burrow came off of, and how he was very consistent throughout that whole season versus you know now what we're seeing out of them, and almost making the Browns look good is amazing.
Shocking.
It's a
It's
difficult
shocking.
thing to do.
It's honestly truly amazing. It is almost impossible. But I think that just about wraps up our segment, which was week one overreaction. So if you are just here for this short little video, about 10, 15 minutes, go ahead and check out the full podcast dropping tomorrow to see our expanded thoughts on some of these teams, especially my thoughts on the Jets because I love them very much as a
Yes,
Patriots
yes,
fan.
yes, yes.
I've loved them for many reasons over the years, mostly because they've been bad. This time it's because they're so damn entertaining. And yeah, drop a like, drop your thoughts on other overrated or overreactions that you may have had week one, and stick around tomorrow. Full podcast drops at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern, and we'll get back to the full podcast.